What's up, guys? For another Iron Books video. Still cold as shit in North Carolina, so can't show off the guns. Anyways, besides that, I am going to be doing the halfway point of my read-through of Our Wives Under the Sea, a review of the halfway that I've read so far. Bad English, but hey, what can you say? This video will probably be a little bit shorter than the other one since it is a halfway point video. But what I will say is that, so, positives and negatives. Only really one negative that I'll talk a little bit later on, but I do want to talk about a lot of the positives so far. So far in this book, Our Wives Under the Sea, the vibes, the aesthetics, the overall presence and setting of the story very much hits the mark when it comes to horror. Very creepy, very gross at times. All in all, it fits the vibe of horror, but so far hasn't scared me. That is also another negative, but that one's kind of a little nitpicky negative because it is a book, you know. It's much harder to be scared by a book than it is by a movie. You know, they has to rely on tension and building up of scenes, while a movie can just jump scare the fuck out of you every 5 seconds. But so far it has been good. And I'll talk a little bit about how the structure is set up so far. So now we have, well, at the starting we have two perspectives. Mira, the wife who was a stay-at-home, not a stay-at-home wife, but a work-at-home wife, and her wife, Leah, who is a marine biologist that was set out into a submarine mission earlier on before the start of the book, and now she has returned from that voyage. And after her return from this voyage, things have become much more weird, much more creepy. Leah has changed considerably. Not only in terms of mentally she has changed, but also physically she is slowly changing as well. Becoming more and more, to not put that much of a spoiler, just becoming more and more fish-like. And throughout this first half of the book, slowly but surely we have been seeing more and more changes from Leah physically and mentally. While we're also in the perspective of Mira, who is essentially going batshit crazy watching her wife change in this drastic manner. And how the chapters are set up is that we always get a Mira chapter followed by a Leah chapter. And they swap throughout the entire story. Which I think, I don't know if I like it or not. I like it because it does give backstory and more context when it comes to the voyage that Leah set off into the submarine. Because in the Leah chapters, the Leah perspectives, we are in the perspective of her, this will be a little bit of a spoiler, of her and her crew in the submarine slowly going down into the ocean. And not only that, communications have been cut off and the submarine has essentially stopped working besides the bare minimums of oxygen and emergency lights. And we're getting her perspective throughout the past before she comes back from her voyage. She was supposed to come back 3 weeks ago, but she came back 6 months ago. 6 months later. And then we go to Mira's perspective, who is now in the present, seeing her wife go through these changes. Seeing her develop these scales along her body. Seeing her bleed in various places that a person should not be bleeding in constantly. Seeing her want different things that normal people don't usually eat. Drinking salt water. Only eating salty things and never anything else. Being uncomfortable with clothing and feeling like it's ripping your skin. This is all what Leah is experiencing in the present. And the interesting thing is that Leah is basically constantly telling Mira that she expects this. That someone, some other person, the they, that Leah is constantly mentioning throughout the present chapters in Mira's perspective, has told Leah and I assume the rest of the crew. That is where the creepiness factors come in of Leah in the present constantly talking about this other they and constantly talking about how these changes are good, these changes are going to go away, constantly trying to unsuccessfully reassure Mira of the changes that are happening. And then we get Mira, who's somewhat of an avoidist when it comes to any sort of confrontation. What do I mean by this? She hasn't told anyone what has happened to Leah. She hasn't told the therapist what has happened to Leah. She hasn't told her family. She hasn't told her closest friends. She's basically told no one about what is happening to Leah physically and mentally. And this is leading her to basically go slowly insane, having to look after Leah and seeing these physical, grotesque changes in her own wife's body, and essentially just not really do anything about it. The weirdest thing about this book so far is that Mira is very hard at actually confronting things. And not only that, talking about things that make her feel bad, make her feel uncomfortable. She constantly, throughout this entire book so far, is holding her thoughts back, holding her words back, so that, from what I assume throughout the story, is just so that she doesn't have to deal with... Sorry about that, guys. A freaking alarm came off. But to not deal with the confrontations that could potentially arise. And we get a bunch of backstory for Mira, of her being essentially not a clean freak, but a disease freak. Constantly panicking over very simple things, very simple... oh my gosh, I forgot the word. Very simple hygienic things that to a normal person is just, hey, it's normal life, hey, you'll clean it off afterwards. While for Mira, it makes her go into extreme panic attacks. Mostly due to her mother, who was also a fanatic when it came to preventing disease and freaking out about anything that could potentially get yourself sick. That is what Mira is constantly mentioning as well. Her past and her ultra anxiety when it comes to disease prevention, disease in general. Which is interesting because what is happening to Leah could potentially be some sort of disease. And maybe because of that potential factor, that is why Mira constantly doesn't say anything to Leah. She's uncomfortable with the fact that this could be a potential disease and constantly wants to be away from that reality, and so keeps her thoughts to herself. So far, a really exciting book. Has some pretty gross moments and has some pretty decent prose. The prose throughout this book is pretty good. Better than Brandon Sanderson, I should say. But that's neither here or there. Now we'll talk about the one negative that I have so far in the book. Though this may potentially be fixed in the later half of the book. I don't really know where the story's going. My prediction so far, and I hope this isn't it, I hope something else happens. My prediction is that we just continue to get this slowly ever-changing Leah throughout the entire book, where the last chapter or two is where the final transformation has finished, and then shit goes wild. If that does happen, I'm gonna be slightly disappointed because it'll be a lot of buildup. But then again, Julia Arnfield, who knows, she could pull it off in the last couple chapters and just go batshit insane in terms of what happens to Leah and Mira. Who knows? If she does go that route, she could pull it off and make it some of the craziest shit that ever is known to man. And also, another thing here is that there are constant Cthulhu and Lovecraftian hints / callbacks that have interested me. And so that's why I'm holding out hope that the story doesn't just painstakingly slow down throughout the rest of the entire book. I'm hoping that we get a big moment, a big Goliathan godlike water entity in the Leah chapters, because as I said before, the Leah chapters are in the past while she and her crew is in the submarine. I'm hoping that we get some cool ass scenes, some cool ass cosmic phobia scenes, maybe some just normal sea horror, some water horror. I don't know. But all I know is that I'm slightly worried that the story isn't going to go anywhere anytime soon. Because, to tell you the truth, so far in the later half of the first half, it's starting to be a lot of the same things. And so that's why I'm slightly worried that the story in the present, at least, isn't really going anywhere. Who knows though? I'm hopefully wrong about that, and hopefully this later half will have tons of cool scenes, a bit more in terms of actual shit happening, a bit more in terms of actual plot, because the main plot in this book is really in the past with Leah's perspective. That's where the main plot is really happening. What happened to Leah during her submarine voyage? That's really what we're kind of looking forward to, and I'm hoping that it's some pretty cool shit that we're going to be seeing. But anyways, guys, that's my little bit of a hint. I didn't want to spoil too much. Honestly, not really in terms of plot has happened in the book. What I said is pretty much what has happened throughout the entire book. Leah and Mira in the present, Mira going insane based off of Leah in the present, changing physically and mentally, and then the past scenes of Leah and her crew going further and further down into the darkness of the sea. That's essentially what happens in the first whole half of the book, and just more and more descriptions of various things throughout it. Hoping there's more to that. I'm hoping that we get some cool scenes in the later half, but that's essentially what has happened so far. Anyways, guys, that is it for me. Oh, and a little bit of a shout out to, I believe her name is Books with Bianca, or Books and Bianca, something like that. She commented on one of my past videos. Excited about this part of the review. Sorry if I wasn't able to say too much. Don't want to spoil too much, because I know you were saying that you were excited about the potential of the book. So far, good. And I would say in the first half, so far I'm leading towards a 3.25. So a little bit above average. Who knows if this second half, though, will be a lot better. So if you guys happen to watch my video, subscribe to her channel. One video back now. She's in the comment section. Nice to have a little book community with small creators. Nice to have some back and forth in terms of talking, which is always nice, especially for us small creators. We kind of have nothing really to do anything besides just trying to build up our channel, right? Anyways, enough of me rambling. That is all I have for you guys. This is Iron Books. I will see you guys next time.